So, Claire, this is episode 9 of Vox Pop. Welcome.
Hello.
We've literally just spoken. We started recording. We started talking before I recorded, so just put that out there. I completely cocked it up, total boober tech. But we are now recording, I'm glad to say. I had asked you, and you have told me, but let's do it for the audience as well. Who are you? Where are you? And just a little bit about you.
So I'm Claire. I'm a 46-year-old mother of 2 living in the East Midlands. As you quite rightly say, I'm quite vocal on Twitter and very strong opinions about what's going on in the world currently right now. The way I see it is this sort of global tyranny. As a mother, I just want a happy future for my kids, with the freedom that I enjoyed when I was their age. I mean, I've got a 16 and a 20-year-old, and I'm very concerned about where all this is leading under the guise of a global pandemic.
Yeah. Well, I share your concerns, as I'm sure do many others. I mean, so if I could just play a bit of devil's advocate, why is it that, how have you come to the conclusion that this is not just the government trying to protect us and is in fact part of a tyrannical seize of power?
Well, I think for me, from the off, something didn't sit quite right with me. And I think when we started talking about lockdowns, I sort of asked the question, we've had viruses before, why lockdown for this particular one and why now? So something obviously didn't sit right with me from day one. I'd always quite kind of questioned it. And thankfully I was given the luxury of time by Mr. Sunak and furlough. So I had a lot of time on my hands to sit and, analyse data, following the news to some degree, not to the point where I let it actually brainwash me, but just looking at the data and then all this nonsense about, deaths within 28 days of a positive death. It just kind of, for me, there was just something that really, really bothered me. I went down obviously every rabbit hole that we've all been down, and then obviously you look and you put 2 and 2 together. Read about Event 201 that happened at the back end of 2019, and then you sort of start going down the route of looking into things like the Great Reset, and then you're reading about all the things then that were sort of considered conspiracy theories, which were out there on, in the public domain on the World Economic Forum website, where they're actually talking about COVID passports. And I remember actually having a conversation with somebody in April last year, my boss saying, is it going to be a case of, we're going to be forced to have jabs, and all these questions that were bothering me, that people were laughing about sort of 18 months ago. And now here we are. And it's a very real possibility. And I kind of think, well, given that this wonderful vaccine, people can still catch and spread the virus with it, what is the point of a vaccine passport?
Exactly.
So, there's just a lot of things that have really sort of bothered me over the last 18 months. And it's just trying to sort of connect the dots, isn't it? And, we've arrived where we are now. So,
I mean, I think it doesn't help with the government. I'm totally of your mind on this, really, but I think when I try every now and again, I check myself when I'm talking to people doing this. They say it to me as well. I sort of check myself and go, am I sane here? Am I? I think we all hope we're wrong.
Of course we do.
But I look at it and I might start thinking, well, perhaps I'm getting. Because I have a view that people generally are fairly tribal. I sail for a living and I run reasonably decent-sized crews, and best friends on one watch, if you move them onto different watches on the next journey of 3 or 4 weeks, it's amazing how they reinstall themselves into a new tribe. And if the tribes start falling out because one watch isn't pulling its weight, those 2 friends they're still friends at the end of the day when they get off the boat, but they become tribalized against each other. So that's just an aside, but it's something I've noticed in doing my job. So I do think, well, perhaps I'm just, there's a them and us like there was with Brexit. There's a sort of a them and us. And Absolutely. Am I getting sort of drawn into that? And probably, yes, I am to some extent. But no, I agree. I mean, what was there any specific one thing? I mean, giving you the ability to live on furlough and giving you giving a motivated person, i.e. somebody with children, skin in the game, time to actually look at something other than mainstream media was a bit of a rookie error, really, wasn't it, for a government?
Definitely. I mean, you know, maybe if I'd been sort of preoccupied with all the sort of, you know, your 9-to-5 job and, you know, 2 kids, 2 dogs, a house to run, you know, maybe I wouldn't have gone as deep down into the rabbit hole as I did, but I have. And, you know, like many others, I think we've absolutely come to the conclusion that this is not about public health and this is all about control. Yeah. It seems to me that, you know, these lockdowns, the government seems to be hell-bent on destroying small to medium-sized businesses. And, you know, in my job, I deal with smaller businesses and I've seen the effects of it. Yep. You know, I've seen customers go under in the last 18 months since I returned to work a year ago, obviously. But there's this massive transfer of wealth from, you know, sort of like you say, the smaller to medium-sized businesses to, you know, your big corporations. You've only got to look at the likes of Amazon and how they've absolutely cleaned up over the last 18 months with people ordering online. You know, all your small independent local shops were forced to close. Asda's still open. You know, you can go in there and you can buy everything under one roof. So it definitely seems to me there is something. Like I say, you know, we're all speculating at this stage. We might be wrong. I hope we are wrong. But to me, I don't know. It's so important to me. I feel it's destroyed relationships with family, friends. I just can't talk to people that aren't on the same page anymore. You feel like you're going crazy, don't you? Yeah. You've probably said the same yourself.
I all the time, and to the people that I'm talking to. And I mean, I'm lucky in that. Well, I have a small family anyway. I only have a brother. We're both neither of us are married, so you can imagine our parent disappointment. But because I've only got my mother left now, so we kind of spend our time. I mean, she's independent, but, you know, sort of looking after her when we need to. And so she's our only route, really, because he's totally bought into the same as me. I mean, he feels exactly the same as I do, which is great. But so the only person in our family that is what generally is referred to in some circles as a normie, if you like, the person who sort of believes everything they're told, is my old mum. And I don't expect her not to, because she's, you know, 80 years old and watches the BBC religiously and thinks that they're all very nice men and they're all just trying to help us. But although she does think they're pretty incompetent, which, you know, and every now and again I'll say, well, I had a conversation with the other day about food shortages. I was talking about this earlier with somebody else, and we said, look, we're going to have energy shortages, we're going to have food shortages. It's all planned. And I bought a generator. We bought my mother a generator. We live out in the sticks, and we obviously want to keep her warm in the winter, so to run the heating boiler and stuff. And we've made various preparations and stuff. And she's sort of, I mean, she's obviously grateful that we're looking after her, but she sort of said, "Oh, I don't know where you get all this information from. It's, you know, you can't trust it. It's you know, it's radicalizing you." And I was like, "Oh, yes, Mum. I bet you heard that on the BBC as well, didn't you?" So.
Well, like I say, I think the lockdown thing straight away rung alarm bells, and it was just bonkers things like, you know, just you'd be walking out or driving down the road, and I remember saying very early on, I saw, and it was a COVID-19 cycle lane, and I really did think to myself, I thought, what on earth has this got to do with the virus, like a COVID-19 cycle lane? And then I started putting 2 and 2 together, and I was thinking, right, okay, so lockdowns, they're essentially stopping people from traveling outside of the local area. People aren't traveling to work anymore. People aren't going on planes. People aren't flying. And I thought, this seems to be nothing to do with the virus. The control thing with things like the vaccine passport, stopping people traveling, definitely think I've come to the conclusion that it is part of a much bigger agenda. And when you do pop onto the WEF website and you see all this nonsense about life, how it's going to be in 2030, and your trips to the countryside will be an occasional treat rather than a staple.
Yeah.
We're all going to be eating bug burgers or whatever nonsense in 10 years' time. We'll be eating less meat. I do think it's just attached to this agenda of control and a complete sort of, not just a financial reset, but also the way we live. And I remember as well last summer, there's just been so many little things along the way, Sam, that have just, really sort of made me question everything. One of them was a leaflet that had come through from Leicester City Council, and it said, I think the headline was something like, "Where will I live and work in 2030?" which was really quite bizarre. And I was like, well, why we're being sort of warmed up to this, 2030? What have they got planned for us? And it was things like where you're going to shop, your recreational, access to recreational facilities. And I did kind of think our life as we know it in 10 years' time is probably going to be very different to the one we all know today.
Yeah, well, the new normal that they're always talking about. I mean, that made me, as soon as they spoke about the new normal, I was already aware of the WAF. And then as soon as they mentioned, everyone on one day all over the world started talking about the new normal. And I thought, hang on a minute, that sounds very dodgy. And then cycle lanes got it for me. They announced 2 billion or 3 billion pounds worth of new cycle lanes for the new normal. And I think that was week 2 or week 3 of the lockdown. And I thought, why are you concentrating on cycle lanes?
Bingo. Exactly.
For a pandemic. Makes no sense whatsoever.
Absolutely.
Yes. Sorry, go on.
It's just crazy. I mean, it's like I've, over the last 6 months, I mean, I'm connected now with people. 6 months ago, I didn't know these people, and now they are my family. We're very active locally. We've got a very strong group of people. We've kind of met through Stand in the Parks. So our home park, centrally in sort of the centre of Leicester, we kind of decided to sort of bring all the groups together. So we've sort of gone on tour and we've gone around all the Stand in the Park groups in Leicestershire, and we've connected everybody. We've now got a Telegram group with over 500 people in it. Wow. And we are quite active in our community, out on the streets. We do something which we call the Pavement Protests. So basically it's a roadside demo where we're there with 21 yellow boards with information about the vaccine, the adverse reactions and deaths, and all this information. We're going out in the community, so we've got everybody holding a sign each. Then there's people there. We're going into local shops and businesses, handing leaflets out, telling them what we're doing. And to be honest, I mean, that is, for me, getting out in your community and trying to educate people and give them the information that the mainstream media isn't giving them. We get a bit of abuse, but more often than not, it's actually a positive response. We have been doing something on a Thursday night. It's something called the Sovereign Project, and it's a common law workshop run by a very, very knowledgeable gentleman who's thankfully from our area, and he really knows his onions. I think we started with a small group of about 25, 30 people. Last night, it was over 100 people. So that's really growing. And, I think there's there is a real community building. It's so encouraging. This is in Leicestershire, where I live. We've got a fantastic group of people. I hope this is happening all over the country. I really do. But, we're constantly sharing ideas. We bounce off each other. It's just amazing. Like I said, these are people that 6 months ago I did not know, and they're now my family. It's just amazing. So that's one good thing that's come out of this whole circus. So.
Well, I mean, I am really, I have to say, I'm really impressed. I was speaking to somebody earlier who is involved similarly, and I said I was going to be speaking to you later, and that was one of the things I wanted to talk about. Really, is the pavement protest, is that the same as Roundabout Rebels, or called something else, or does everyone just call it a different thing?
Yeah, it's a very similar thing. I mean, we just call ours, we've got a Telegram group and it's called the Pavement Protests, and we've got about 150 people in that. Usually we've got about 40 people that turn out. We do them every Saturday afternoon. We'll pick an arterial road in and out of the city of Leicester. We'll all be there. I mean, what we have been doing as part of that is, a couple of us are going into local shops and businesses. And I think it's quite an interesting demographic in Leicester, because we've got quite a large number of immigrants. So we've got, there's one particular part of Leicester where we were the other week, and they've got a lot of Eastern European businesses down there. So, there's all sorts of food places, there's Turkish barbers, there's all sorts. And they seem to be the ones more than anybody that are more open to what we're doing. And I don't know whether it's possibly because of where they've come from, and they've seen this in their own countries, where I feel like you're British born, you're sort of Middle England, your white British family. They've never experienced hardship. So as long as they're sitting at home on a Saturday night, they've got the takeaway and their crap TV, they're quite happy to sit and accept this and believe that, what they're seeing on the television is the truth, that their government care about them. It's quite sad, really, that
it is.
I don't know. It's just very strange.
There is I'm convinced that the majority of people that feel generally like we do either don't watch any TV or are very selective on what they watch, and watch it with a level of not cynicism now, but skepticism certainly before. I mean, I haven't watched. I stopped watching TV about 6 years ago. And I still watch films and Netflix and stuff like that, but I don't watch TV. But A, because it's rubbish, and B, because when I do see bits now, again, when I go and pop in to see my old mum, and she's got it on the background for company, and you listen to the local news or whatever, it is. I'm not surprised that people are so either terrified or angry at people that are taking a different view, because they are constantly bombarded with propaganda all the time.
Absolutely, yeah.
It is amazing. It's interesting what you said about that. You get a mixed response, but generally a good response to your sort of information war, if you like. Because I was told the same earlier by Flora, who's Flora B. She's on Twitter as well, and she was involved in the same thing, and she was saying they generally get very good response. Lots of people papping the horns and in support and all the rest of it. It's great if you're getting that support, because it's a lot easier than if you're getting a lot of challenging responses. But
and we've had some real challenging responses, trust me.
I bet. I mean,
quite happy to share those stories with you.
Yeah, please. I mean, I'm guessing people, I can see why people, if you genuinely believe that somebody is being irresponsible with the nation's health and potentially being a granny killer, if you like, then I could see why they would get so angry. I don't understand how they get to that.
I kind of have a theory about the angry ones, though.
Go on. I think I probably. I'll tell you mine. You tell me yours, and I'll tell you mine.
Okay, so we did a pavement protest last weekend, and there was this guy, and he saw us sort of unloading the signs at the side of the road, and he came over, and he was losing his mind. I mean, he was going crazy. Claimed to be a doctor, but they never sort of tell you what they're a doctor of, or what their PhD, or what their science, or whatever. So this guy was absolutely losing his mind, and he was trying to. We were all crazy. Oh, you've done your 5 minutes of research on YouTube, and I went, oh, here we go, that old chestnut again. But two of the guys there, and they're guys that are in their 50s, and they're very, very articulate, and they kind of went in at him with a different, instead of sort of arguing with him and getting angry in return, they were being quite reasonable. And one of the guys was talking about the PCR test and how they ramp the cycle up when they need to get the cases up and all of this stuff. And then the other one was talking about fascism and communism and all sorts. And then he kind of he just was like a rabbit in the headlights, and he just kind of shut up, and he had nothing to come back with. And, I kind of have this theory that these people that get angry, I think deep down, they're questioning their own beliefs. And you've kind of, you've made them face their own demons. So I think if they get that angry, there's something that's bothering them too.
I absolutely agree.
Believe that.
Absolutely agree. That was actually pretty much where I am as well, and I think you've stated it really well. I think facing, because it's a hard thing to face, isn't it? I mean, as you say, none of us want it to be true. But I think the other thing, the mask thing, I think when people were getting, I didn't really get any pushback on masks, but then again, as a bloke, you probably get less than if you're a girl, and there's some, I've noticed that a lot of women get picked on, both by women and by men, which I think is really unfortunate. But I've had a couple of challenges by people on doors and stuff. And I did have a period when I wore a mask for a short period of time. That was, I'll just briefly, I'll tell you why, because I think there's a lot of people, I think it's good to encourage people not to, without sort of shaming them, which is easy to do. I didn't wear a mask. And then last summer, I had to fly abroad for work. And there was just no way out of it. You had to have a doctor's note if you were not going to wear one. I haven't got a doctor's note. I can wear a mask if I wanted to. So I had to wear a mask on this EasyJet flight. And it was to Gibraltar. Gibraltar was fine. There was nothing wrong with Gibraltar. They hadn't had any problems at that point. So I didn't wear a mask in Gibraltar for 3 weeks. And then I flew back, and they were even stricter on the way back. You had to put it on in between drinking sips of coffee.
Wow.
Because it was, nuts. When I got back, I went through the airport, and then I took it off again. And then when I went out, the next time I went out, I just felt a hypocrite, because I thought, well, I've been wearing a mask and now I'm not. Am I just being a prat? I was just sort of, so I actually wore a mask for about 4 weeks in the UK. And then, of course, I'd been to all of my local shops with a mask on. So then going with a mask off, it was a much harder thing to do, because you were being openly confrontational then, especially because they've all got security on the doors, even the local Waitrose. So in the end, about, I don't know how many months ago now, beginning of this year probably, or end of last year, I can't remember, I just thought, well, I'm just going to have to bite the bullet, because this is how it works. If you comply, they've got you, So I took it off, and then, of course, I had to have a few confrontations with people on doors. And
it's never nice, is it?
It isn't, no. And I'm like, because you're going shopping, and the last thing you want to do is have a row with some bloke, especially when it's a local shop.
Definitely not.
So I, it got to the point. The guy, it's not a very interesting story, but Waitrose sort of, it's not exactly inner city, fairly nice little town. But I turn up, and this guy who's probably in his mid-60s, and he was very nice. Would you like a mask? Because he knew I'd been wearing one before, even though it did say, I think it said, what do you call it when you take a placebo? It had placebo written all over the front of it. Anyway, so he knew I was already a bit, anti it. Would you like a mask, sir? And I said, no, thanks, I'm fine. Gave him a smile, and he sort of a bit of a frown. And I got frowns for a couple of weeks, and now we're on nodding terms again, and it's all right. When it starts again in the autumn, which I think it will.
Definitely.
But I shall definitely not wear a mask again. Not happening. I may have to fly. That's the only thing, because I hardly done any work in the last 18 months, so I can't really not work, and so I might have to do it for flying. But anyway, so that was the side. But no, that's interesting. I think the people that get angry with masks, that's where I was going. I think that they're angry with themselves for not having the gumption.
Absolutely.
Not to do it, and I've seen this in shops a couple of times. I've actually put it on Twitter. I've wandered with my local Waitrose, which is where I do most of my shopping. I've wandered in there recently. I've seen it's normally about 60% people with masks on in there. It's quite an old area. And then I'll see a couple of young men, maybe in their 30s or something, and 30s and early 40s, quite sort of fit and obviously in no real danger, you would think. And they wander in the shorts and the flip-flops, and we sort of make eye contact, and then they walk around the corner to the cheese counter or something, and the next time I meet them, the mask is in the pocket. Which is interesting. So, and it's good, really, that that's happening. So they obviously don't want to wear them, but it's
like, I think in the whole time, initially when I knew that the masks were being introduced in July last year, it was kind of like, well, I knew it just went against everything that I believed in, and I just did not want to wear one. And I just couldn't bring myself to do it. To me, it was just conforming to something that I didn't necessarily believe in. And I think initially I did make the excuses that, oh, I'm exempt and all of that. But as I've now gone through the last few months and I've been learning about common law, I'm now confidently standing in my own sovereignty and saying, actually, all of this nonsense, it's legislation, it's not law. All of these conditions, all of these, everything is an offer. It's not law. I'm not breaking any law by not wearing a mask. I don't want to wear a mask, so I'm not going to wear one. And it was literally, to start with, I would make the excuses of, I even had a lanyard that I'd keep in my bag just in case, because I didn't want the confrontation. Whereas now I'm like, do you know what? Actually, I'm not wearing a mask. I'm a living, breathing, sovereign woman. I'm not wearing a mask. And it's like that confidence to actually, stand in your sovereignty and say, no, I'm not, thank you for your offer, but I'll decline. Thank you very much. Away you go. So, I have become a lot more confident in that respect now. I think I've had one scuffle once in Aldi, and this woman was kind of looking at me, when you're in the mood and you're like, okay, just say it. So she looked at me and she went, where's your mask? And I said, I'm sorry. And she said, where's your mask? And I said, well, you're not at liberty to ask me that, so I'm not answering. Okay, fair enough. And then there was an old guy at the till at the end, and he goes, yes, why aren't you wearing a mask? And I just told her, I said, it's not really either of any of your business, is it really? And this woman turned around and she went, well, I want to go on holiday. And I thought, oh, sorry, what? It's Boris Johnson stopping you going on holiday, love, not me and my maskless face. But I think that's the only time I've actually had a challenge, which I have to say, in over a year, isn't a bad shout, really, is it?
No, that's pretty good. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
I've as I say, I've not really had any trouble. My biggest concern, I did have on my phone, I had a screensaver of one of the, I am exempt from wearing a face covering, which I think was on the government website. In fact, I'm just looking at it; it's still there, but I've never used it. But I had it there because I thought, well, at the beginning, to be honest, if I'm not working and I didn't get any furlough, the last thing I need is a £500 fine or whatever it is. So if it
which would have got thrown out in court anyway.
It would have done, yes. But at the time, it was like, when I thought, well, I really could do without that at this moment in time. So it was for the police if I'd been stopped by the police. But I've never been stopped by the police. So and now I'm of your view. I mean, I don't know enough about this I did law at university, so I'm aware of the difference between statute law and common law, and the way that common law is formed. And of course, a lot of these statutes, I suppose, they haven't been tested, and I think you could argue they haven't been passed lawfully. Because,
it's legislation, isn't it? And it's a very different thing. I mean, it's like we've learned quite a lot. We've been doing this for about 3 months now, and it's a weekly workshop. And I would invite anybody to pop onto the website and have a look. It's the sovereignproject.live. I think when Pete Stone set this up, he initially had we've gone from sort of 900 fraternity members a few weeks ago to over 3,000 now. I mean, he's done podcasts with Charlie Ward, Mark Devlin, and he's really sort of increased his following. And on the back of that, it's grown locally. We've had a lot of people jump on board with it. But it's very interesting the way, I mean, even dealing with police and how they use language against you. And just knowing how to use that language when you're dealing with them. So never refer to them as a police or policy officer. Don't refer to them as a police officer. Ask them if they're working under their oath, and call them constable. Right. It's just these little things, and not accepting titles. When they pull you over and say, are you the driver of this vehicle? They want you to say yes. They want you to accept that title and enter into a contract with them. So, what you'd say instead is something like, no, I'm not the driver of this vehicle. I am using this vehicle to travel. So you kind of use, it's adapting your language so that you don't enter into these bogus contracts with policy officers, and remind them that they are a constable of the law and they're here to serve you. I mean, I'm always getting to the point now where I actually want to get pulled over by the police so that I can actually try it out.
Well,
It'd just be really interesting. But what we're trying to do with the common law thing as well is, we have gone into local shops when we're out on these pavement protests, and like I went in and I was having a chat with a Turkish barber, and I was saying to him, "Do you want to keep your business open if there's a lockdown?" And he was like, "Absolutely, yes, I do." So we were like, "Well, look, there's a whole group of us, and we are doing this at the moment. We're actively we're all training up to become common law constables, and we're working with a group called the Guardians 300." So we've got quite a lot of us locally who are training up to be common law constables.
right.
The idea is, if there's another lockdown and small independent businesses choose to stay open, which we're encouraging them to do, we are going out in the community and we are speaking to these smaller businesses and saying, if there's a lockdown, keep your shop open. You've got the inalienable right to make a living. Nobody can stop you. And we're saying, if the police turn up, the idea is, if the police turn up and there's 6 of them, we turn up in a group of 12 and we use common law to get rid of them, basically.
Right.
And this is what we're trying to encourage people to do. We are really actively trying to help people in our community who don't know, that they can stay open. There's no law that's going to stop them from trading. And you've probably seen the videos on social media of the guy in a tattoo parlor staying open, and there was a gym that stayed open, and all of these businesses, and they managed to do it using common law and knowing the language. And it is powerful, and people need to stand in their sovereignty and use it. But I'd say it's definitely something people need to learn. I mean, we're even doing it now where we're trying to, we're working in teams. We're sending notices to schools about vaccinating children. So there's a whole team of us doing that. There's quite a few of us that have stopped paying council tax, and we're hoping that if we can get to a point where, if we cut the head off the beast, all your taxes are fraudulent, your council tax, it's basically paying, it's basically paying their debts. It's nothing to do with your services in your community. So there's quite a few of us that are trying to get out of paying council tax at the minute. We're looking at putting our properties and our own cars into trusts. All of these things, and sort of trying to free ourselves of the shackles and get out of the system, really. So it's been really, it's really interesting. We're working really well together as a team and doing all of these things. So, and we were saying, how powerful would it be if you suddenly got hundreds of thousands of people all over the country that stop paying council tax?
Exactly. Well,
a very powerful message.
It has to be, that sort of thing has to happen next if they're going to keep pushing, which I think they are. Because I'm not prepared to accept vaccine passports. I'm not going to take the jab. I don't mind if everyone else wants to take it. That's up to them. They can do what they like.
Absolutely.
But I'm not going to take the jab. I'm not going to be made to take it. And
you don't want to be penalised for your choices.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, if they're going to try then to exclude me, to banish me from society for doing it, which is what it is, it's banishment. I mean, it's got Middle Ages stuff. Then as far as I'm concerned, on a personal level, all bets are off. Now, I haven't. I think there's a societal contract as far as I'm concerned. I'm not necessarily talking legally here. I'm just talking, it's the same with the police. The police are tasked to, they're civilians tasked to undertake their role as member of the public. They're just another member of the public, aren't they? A constable is not it's not like they're the special forces, although they sometimes look like it. So even I don't know enough about, I don't know this sovereignty and common law stuff. I don't know about. I mean, I know of it, but I don't know enough. Only what you've really just said.
Yeah.
But I think from a moral perspective, as far as I'm concerned, no matter what the law, there comes a point, and somebody famous, probably Jefferson or someone like that, said, there comes a point when a law is immoral, where it's your obligation, your duty, not to live by it. And if you don't, if you just keep standing down, which was evidenced very clearly to me through my wearing a mask for a couple of months. If you keep doing that, they'll just keep taking little bits away, and before you know it, boiling the frog, and you've got nothing left.
Exactly. And this is the thing that people don't realise. It is totally, it is the boiling frog syndrome. It is, little bits, taking little bits of freedom away here and there. And it's such a gradual process, but how long is this going to go on for? How bad is it going to get?
Yeah. I think that's the other thing. I mean, we were talking earlier about the way it's all organized globally. I mean, the fact that every country has come to the same conclusion, we need a passport. For the first time ever, we need to have a vaccine passport for this vaccine. We haven't needed a vaccine passport for any other. We've just, if you've got, I mean, I have, yellow fever I've had loads of vaccines in my life. I guess you probably have too, but I had the yellow fever one. You get your little yellow card. Yeah, okay, fine. You could say, well, people do say, don't they? Well, why you have a yellow fever card? What's the difference? Well, the difference is I only have to show that when I travel from Brazil to South Africa. I don't have to. I'm not tracked on it, and I don't have to show it to open a bank account. And well, you don't have to do that now. Well, that's what's going to happen.
This is the difference. This is what people can't see. I mean, it's like if I choose to go to a country that requires, like you say, yellow fever or whatever jabs they require, that's my choice. I can choose to not visit that country. I can choose not to go, and if I want to go, I have to have that vaccination. But there's a very there's a big difference between having a jab to travel and a jab to go to the bloody gym or go to watch a film at the cinema, or it's just,
or to have a job even.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I've had a lot of people, because I've been doing a lot of work with common law, I've had quite a lot of people come to me and they're saying, I'm really scared, Claire, I don't want to have this vaccine, but I'm being pushed into a corner. And my advice to anybody who's in that position is let them sack you, because you've got two angles here. Firstly, when you took that jab on, there you go, play on words. When you take that job on, you're not accepting mandatory vaccinations of any kind as a term and condition of your employment. So straight away, there's breach of contract. And then there's also the constructive dismissal angle. So if you get sacked because you don't want to have a jab, well, I'm sure there's plenty of employment lawyers sitting, waiting in the wings, rubbing their hands together, waiting for this to happen.
Well, I spoke to a chap called Duncan the other day, and he works, self-employed, works in personnel and advises medium-sized companies. And he's having his own problems at the moment because he's being asked by some companies to advise them on whether or not they can make people take the vaccine legally.
Yeah.
And of course, he's completely against it. So, I mean, he's basically was saying he's come to the conclusion that he's probably going to have to let some of his clients go because he's not prepared to go there, which is a very principled stance, and it's fantastic to hear. But he was quite, well, he's kind of where I am at the moment, in that I think the courts in this country are entirely unfit for purpose. I think they're all corrupt. They're all politicized. Definitely. I don't think there's any chance that you're going to get them to, well, as is evidenced by the few people that have gone to high courts and trying to get them to adjudicate on things. They've either kicked it back into the long grass, or they've delayed it, or they've come down on the government side without really discussing it. So it's going to, if the government want to go down this route, my view, for what it's worth, it's not something I relish, but I think it's going to become more and more confrontational. And all you can do is try and be on the right side of that. And unfortunately, as is always the case with civil disobedience and challenging laws, a lot of people are probably going to have to suffer along the way, one way or another. Which is a bit depressing, really. I was rather hoping I'd just live out my remaining years having a nice time. But
didn't we all?
Yeah.
I've got a very long bucket list, places I want to visit, and it's not looking too good at the minute, is it?
No, that is, I mean, I am very lucky because I've done an awful lot of traveling, both before and also in doing the job I do. So I've been all over the world and gone loads of different places, but it kind of limits a lot of what I can do now. And it also makes it miserable and expensive as well. Because sorry, go on.
Go on, carry on.
I was just saying, what's your view? I was going slightly off topic. What's your view on tests? Have you had to have a test yet?
Never had a test, and I don't intend on doing one anytime soon. And this is part of the thing for me. Like, I love to travel, I really do, But, I mean, I was very fortunate in 2019. I actually managed to get away. I had 5 breaks abroad, and it was great. However, I've not been on a plane for nearly 2 years, and I'm getting itchy feet. I need to travel. But for me, I don't want to be testing for something I know that I haven't got. It's almost as if now you're considered sick until proven healthy. And it's just bonkers, in my opinion. Okay, if I turn up at the airport and I'm coughing and spluttering and sneezing everywhere, fair enough, but I just refuse to do it. I don't want to test. I don't want to wear a mask. I don't want to do any of that. I mean, the only other thing is you can turn up, under common law, flash the first page of your passport and say, hey, I've got the inalienable right to travel. Let me get on that plane. And I'm not, thanks for your offer of a test. However, I'm declining. But it's not going to wash, is it? No. So for me, no, I'll just leave the travelling. I'll park it up and wait. If we ever get back to some normality, which I genuinely hope we really do, but we shall see.
Yeah, well, I've got a job coming up, my first job in quite a long time, actually, which is delivering a yacht in the Mediterranean. I'm flying out to Genoa in about 3 weeks' time, and I've got to have a jab, not a jab, I've got to have a test for that.
Yeah.
And then when I get, and I haven't had a test yet, and I really don't want to have one, and but I may have to if I want to do this, and but then I know when I get there, what worries me the most is it's quite convoluted traveling. I'm getting a single flight out, then I'm traveling on a yacht to another country, and then I've got to have another test at some point, and then I come back. If at any point in that, which is already a fairly complicated itinerary, I test positive, the idea of having to go and sit in a expensive hotel, or a crappy expensive hotel for I don't know how long, or be, I mean, God, the idea, and I can't isolate on the boat because there's other people on the boat. So, and the chances of me getting a false positive, I don't know what it's like with the difference between the PCR tests and the other tests, but I just think, it's just my luck to bloody get tested and found positive or something. But so I'm not looking forward to it, I have to say. And I really don't want to spoil my duck and have to have a test. But
it's almost like now it's got to the point where I so refuse to comply with any of this nonsense. I just can't do it. I mean, I've got a conference coming up this year for work, and the first concern was, oh my God, what if they're talking about vaccine passports, and you've got to have all of that nonsense. But I might have to compromise, and I might have to have a test to go. But at the end of the day, it's my job, isn't it? And if it means, we've all got bills to pay. Yeah. So I've come this far, 18 months in without having a test. So I might just have to take one for the team and just bite the bullet and get it done. But yeah, it's just things like that really bother me at the minute. I just don't want to get involved with any of this nonsense at all.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I'm certainly not going to have the jab, but I mean, even that, my brother and I had this conversation. Listeners to the podcast will know this. I won't go into great detail on it, but about if one of us might have to have the jab if we are basically in order to retain a job, so that we're, I mean, I'm kind of self-employed, so I could probably work around it one way or another.
Yeah.
But, he's an academic and he works on a university campus. And if they enforce it, he was saying, well, it might come to a point where I have to in order to retain a job. And also, with our mother, who is, as I say, she's independent, but, to be able to sort of, for instance, going to a hospital with her or something like that. So he was saying I might have to take one for the team. And I was like, I was disappointed, but I kind of also impressed that he'd thought it through. But he and I have both got recently bought these Zavodo or Zacodo packs or something, and ivermectin and stuff. And the reason I've done it is not so much if I catch, I think I've already had it, to be honest, but I don't know. But if I haven't and I caught it and I was ill, I'm 56, so I'm, I suppose you could say I mean, it's still a low risk, but, maybe I could be, I certainly wouldn't want to be one of those people that was like, oh, I wish I'd had the vaccine. That's not going to be me. But, but I'm prepared to accept, yes, there could be a risk, but like there could be if I caught flu, but we've both bought this ivermectin totally, off the off the radar, which is a risk in itself because it's a prescription drug. And he's bought it primarily because if he has to have the jab,
I've got some in my cupboard as well.
Yeah. Well, it's an insurance policy, isn't it? I mean, he's done it because if he has to, his view was, if I have to have the jab, and if I take a combination of ivermectin and in the various drugs that you could, he's looked into it. He's an academic, so he's looked into it in a lot of detail. He said, there's a good chance that it would limit the potential for the jab to be damaging, clotting, this spike protein and all the rest of it. So he's actually got it to mitigate any side effects from the jab because he's a healthy sort of 49-year-old bloke.
That's another thing that we've been looking at, actually. We're saying, because we're probably considered anti-vaxxers, which none of us actually are. What we are is actually mandatory, forced, coerced, whatever this jab nonsense is. If you can call it a vaccine, I don't know. But we're actually looking at angles whereby instead of people just thinking we're a bunch of crazy anti-vaxxers, what we want to do is say, we have been talking to people and saying, is there informed consent being given? Because I don't believe there is. I mean, there's a lot of people that we've spoken to that have said, I wasn't even told about the yellow card scheme. Is that informed consent? I don't think it is. And we're saying to people, and we've actually spoken to a lot of people who have been vaccinated, and they've actually come and approached us and said, actually, I have had the vaccine, and I had a reaction to it. And we're like, well, have you reported it to the yellow card scheme? What's that?
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, you mean you weren't told? And this is the thing. I mean, we all know that between 1% and 10% of adverse reactions are actually reported. And when you talk to the amount of people that have had a reaction that don't know about the scheme, it's astounding. So you can understand that figure is probably a lot higher than the 1.2 million that have been recorded on there, the 1.6, the 1,600 deaths that have been reported. I mean, people aren't reporting a death for the hell of it, are they?
Exactly.
You've lost somebody, you wouldn't do it for the hell of it. I mean, we had our own little protest sort of on the back of the worldwide Rally for Freedom last weekend. We did our own thing in Leicester. We were like, even if there's just, it's just our group and, a few others turn up, great. We need to get out in the city and we need to let people know what we're doing. And we actually had a guy that came up to us who was talking to us, and his story had actually been in the Leicester Mercury. He'd lost his wife to the AstraZeneca vaccine. She'd had a reaction within 24 hours and ended up in hospital. Within 2 weeks of the vaccine, she was dead. And he knows it's the vaccine that actually killed her. Yeah. I spoke to, we had some really interesting conversations, spoke to a lady that came up to us, and she said, you lot are anti-COVID vax. I'm a true anti-vaxxer. She said, I've got a vaccine damaged child. And it's awful that we are being targeted, and we're all being tarred with this anti-vax brush. But a lot of the people that are actually anti-vax have probably done more research than the people that are now rolling up going, stick definitely. It in me. I want to go and watch the football and have a pint on a Saturday afternoon, stick it in me, and this lady was an educated woman, and she said, I've looked into this vaccine, and she says, I'm absolutely not taking it. And she also told us a story about her dad, who last summer had had a heart attack and died in his own back garden at home, and he was put down as a COVID death. So she is onto this scamdemic, plandemic, whatever you want to call it. But we had really interesting conversations with people, and and it's like you have this argument with people where you're saying, well, all these so-called COVID deaths, are they? I mean, we've had a conversation with a local undertaker, and he confirmed himself. He said, we saw no excess deaths in 2020 than we did in any other year. He said the way that the doctors were sort of, they were doing calls via Skype to look at dead bodies, and you're like, well, and they were asking strange questions like, has the body got any stab wounds or any bruising or anything that could be considered suspicious? If there were, then obviously that would need further investigation. But other than that, so many of them were apparently being told to put down as being COVID deaths on the certificate.
That's outrageous. I mean, I don't. I've got a bad history with the NHS because I've had a couple of family members that have been very badly let down by them. My father, effectively their negligence killed him, and I actually got that. I pursued it through the courts, and eventually, after about 3.5 years, got a full finding in our favour. Not that it helps, you know, your father's still gone, but at that time, with that, they knew they'd done wrong. One of the doctors actually told me at the time, "We've screwed up here, and there's no way out of it. I'm afraid he's going to die," which was a very, very. I mean, even at the time, I thanked him for his honesty, because that's a brutal thing to have to say to somebody who's looking at their father on a deathbed, you know. So I was so impressed with this doctor, but he came out and said, "Look, I've looked at the notes. He was, you know, it was overnight that it had happened. I've looked at the notes. This has been missed. It shouldn't have been. It's I've recorded it as a whatever they record it as, you know, a mistake or whatever." And then when we finally got him to another ward, which was probably about 18 hours, 2 days later, the nurse there, who was also a specialist stroke nurse, he'd had a stroke, was she said, "I've already seen the file, and we'll do everything we can to make him comfortable, and you really should, between us, you should really pursue them, because this is unacceptable." So I was pretty clear from then that, you know, they're not going to offer that sort of I mean, I'm sure their employer wouldn't like to know that they'd said that, but, you know, it was good of them to do it. Anyway, long story short, how they wriggled to get out of that, you know, they're out there to protect their own asses. So if they're under government pressure as well, if the government is saying, "Look, don't worry about it, just put it down," and they're, you know, it's carrot and stick, isn't it? You know, they're getting lots of work from them, but at the same time, if you cross them or change the narrative, then you're going to be ostracized, lose your job. The whole thing stinks to high heaven. It really does.
Oh, it really does.
And the other thing is that I am perfectly willing to accept that there is always a risk with any medication, and there's lots of medications that kill people, and you have to balance the risk against the reward, don't you? So but when you're looking at something like COVID, where the average person has got a 0.03% chance of dying from it, and if you're under 30, it's like 0.00003 or 7. It's, you know, it's a 1 in 500,000 chance or something of dying of COVID if you're under 30 and healthy. I think, well, why on earth would I risk a 1 in 40? It's a 1 in 43. Last time I looked at the figures, a 1 in 43 chance of having a side effect, which could just be a headache or, you know, a hurty arm. But it's a 1 in 34,000 chance of dying from the vaccine. 1 in 34,000. That was when there was something like 46 million vaccines delivered, and 1,400. I haven't done the maths now, but I remember doing the maths at the time. I think it was 1 in 34 or 1 in 43,000 chance of actually dying from the vaccine based on their figures. Now, if their figures are 10% of the real figures,
which they probably are,
that's really frightening. I mean, you know, God, I hope that's
astonishing.
But when you think that what was it, SARS? Remember there was one back about 2008. We had a sort of a scare, which Ferguson was involved with as well. Said there was going to be 500,000 people dying.
Ferguson and his magic calculator.
Exactly, yeah. And I think 57 people died worldwide of it.
Yeah.
So, but on that, no, it wasn't. It was something like that. It was a tiny number. But of that, there was some. I think they had the 57. I'm thinking was 57 vaccine deaths. But there wasn't. There was only a few hundred people died worldwide of the actual thing, I think, or in Europe. But either way, what I'm getting at is they had 57 vaccine-related deaths, and they stopped giving the vaccine.
But they're still firing on all cylinders with this thing, aren't they?
Exactly. I mean, that's outrageous. Even forget everything else. Just that on its own.
We've just produced a leaflet that we're getting out locally, and you know, it's not crazy conspiracy stuff. This is data from the government's own website, and on there, and it's talking about rare side effects, and the least worst, if you like, is blindness, which is 389 cases in the UK. That's a lot. That is a lot. But then, looking down the list, over 2,000 seizures. You know, nearly 1,800 strokes. Bell's palsy, nearly 1,000. And then deaths, you've got 1,600 deaths in the UK alone. And that's only the reactions that have been reported. So if you stick another zero or, you know, on top of that, that's a hell of a lot.
And then you've got, you've got lots of people that haven't put two and two together. I mean, you'll have seen them on Twitter, the amount of people that say, well, I've had both vaccines. I had my second one last week and I've been terrible all week with COVID. I'm so lucky I had the vaccine. And you think, well, can't you see what's happening?
I was speaking to a customer last week, a 23-year-old lad who's just been double jabbed. And I just think, crazy. I mean, he's probably had it because he wants to go on holiday with his mates or whatever. But, you know, I was talking to him last week and I said, are you okay? You sound really poorly. And he said, I've been really, really ill. And I spoke to him again this week and said, you still don't sound right. And he said, no, well, he said, I feel really bad. But these people aren't joining they're not joining the dots. And, you know, everybody I've spoken to recently that's been really quite poorly, they've all been double jabbed. Whereas I sit in a room on a Thursday night every week doing this common law thing. There's, you know, anywhere between 80 and 100 of us every week in a pub, no social distancing, no masks. We all hug each other. You know, it's a real love fest. But, you know, for 3 months, we've been getting together every week. Not one of us has been ill. Not one of us is jabbed. And it's just insane. And I'm like, you know, I even took the mick out of my boss the other week when he told me he was ill. And I went, oh, so good we've had the jabs then, isn't it? Because he just tested positive. I'm like, it's just insane. And this is why I keep having this argument with people. I'm like, can you understand how crazy you sound when you are blaming the unvaccinated people or saying, you know, all the people I'm speaking to that are ill at the minute are those that have been vaccinated, and you can still catch it and you can still spread it. Right. So if your jab works, why do I need to have it?
Exactly.
It's just a crazy argument. I'm like, do you realise how insane you actually sound?
And there are people, I mean, there's plenty of, I mean, I really don't understand their motivation, but there's plenty of doctors, medical doctors on Twitter. I mean, there's obviously plenty on the other side too, but not so many, but there's lots of medical doctors that are making a career of this, that are, you know, there's a doctor in Oxford, Clare, Oxford, or whatever her Twitter handle is, I can't remember, but she is, you know, she's actually selling masks on a website.
Yeah.
And I can't help but think she's delighting in the drama of it all.
Absolutely.
As a doctor, it's outrageous. You know, and the virtue signaling as well. I'm a doctor. I'm saving everybody. You know, the whole thing stinks. Anyway, I mean, we know we both share the same views on this, but it is, as you say, I think the problem is I don't understand. No one has made a good argument yet to me that, you know, if you can still catch it and you can still pass it on, which they have admitted that you can, and the only benefit they say it has is to stop you getting it so bad. Why do you care if I have it or not? Makes no difference to you.
And I think as well, people seem to forget that in March 2020, Chris Whitty on national television on the news stood there and he actually said, right, and people must have a very short memory, that the majority of us will not have symptoms any worse than a cold or flu, and we will not be hospitalized. He even said that, and I can't believe that people have forgotten that.
Well, it's because they, for whatever reason, I think it was basically Sage, they obviously decided, well, this is best case scenario that it was Sage, they decided that we need to scare the populace so that they will lock down, because otherwise they'll ignore us, which is the first time, I would think, in history that a government tries to agitate fear in a population during a pandemic. I mean, it would normally be the opposite way around. You're trying not to have hysteria. You want your population to be calm. If you're trying to instill it over a period of 18 months, spending hundreds of millions of pounds to do it, again, that just stinks. It just says, well, why are you trying to frighten everyone so much?
We all know that at the beginning of the pandemic, I mean, another thing that people seem to be ignoring is the fact that this virus was downgraded from a HCID on the 19th of March 2020, before we even locked down. And that seems to be escaping everybody at the minute. How they don't know this, I really don't know. But also the fact that early on, to encourage the public to comply, the government obviously enlisted the nudge unit, what was it, the behavioural insight team they call it, isn't it? To actually make sure that the nation were in a sufficient state of fear to get them to comply to all these ridiculously draconian measures that they've implemented. And it's like, if you look, like I've got a friend who's an NLP practitioner, neuro-linguistic programming, or whatever it's called, and she actually noticed, she said that she can actually see that they have used those techniques in their delivery when they're addressing the nation on the news at 6 o'clock or 5 o'clock or whatever it is every day. And the most common one is the everything in threes. So like the hands, face, space, stay at home, protect the NHS, save lives. It's all in threes.
Yeah.
And that it's part of the brainwashing mechanism to get people to comply, and that message sinking in. I mean, that's probably why I've never been brainwashed, because I only had to see that advert on the television or hear it on the radio, and I'd be, turn this crap off quick, because it's, I didn't want to get into this cycle that everybody else seems to be in. I mean, I've tested the water when I've had conversations with friends, and I've said little things just to try and gauge the response I get. And then the conversation starts. I'm like, you have been completely lost to the narrative, and you're not coming back anytime soon. It's just, I feel it's completely destroyed relationships that I've had with people that I've known for years, because we're just totally on a different page, and I can't talk to people anymymore.
Well,
it's just awful.
It is terrible. I mean, I said something yesterday on Twitter, lamenting that very fact that I've got some of my best, closest friends, and I haven't seen them for a long time. And the primary reason is because I don't know what I'd say to them, because we're in different worlds now completely. And if I was to start talking as I would, because I'd have very little self-control and I know them well, so I'd be off. I'm not very good at keeping my gob shut. So they'd end up thinking I was a complete lunatic, and I'd end up getting angry with them. So I think, well, I'm best to avoid them at the moment and just hope that things change. But it's I've lost an element of respect for them, because I just think, because they're bright people. It's not like they're stupid people. And
that's the scary thing, though, isn't it? The amount of people that I previously would have considered educated, intelligent people who were quite savvy, they seem to have almost fallen for it far more than some other people. It's like I've asked myself this question a million times. What makes us question it and they don't? What is different about us and them? Why do we see it but they don't?
It is weird.
I can't understand it. I need to know the answer to that. If you ever find out, please tell me, Sam.
Yeah, well, I mean, certainly TV is one thing, but that's not everything. But with me, I could understand. I've always been. I'm not someone who's ever been in trouble with the law or anything, or been a particular rebel, but I am very much an individual. So I'm not part of I'm rarely part of a group. If I am part of a group, I hope I'm a team player, but I'm not swayed by, generally, I'm not swayed by, I was never in a gang at school or anything, and I always been suspicious of authority. Yeah. I'm very anti-authoritarian, even though I'm pretty sort of square, really, but I don't make a fuss of it, but I just don't do stuff. I just go, well, no, I'm not going to do that. So I could see with me, to some extent, it could just be a character trait. I'm a difficult bugger that's not prepared to just do that stuff. But there are other people I know who you would never say were like that, who are easily as on the same page as me. So it can't just be that. Somebody yesterday on Twitter, again, so I keep bringing Twitter into it, said something like, I'm sure there are just some people out there who don't like to be told what to do. And I replied, well, yeah, and there's seemingly a lot of people out there who can't do anything without being told what it is. They're sort of like, they have to. Well, sheep is the cliche, isn't it? But,
definitely.
But I don't think
obviously the wolves.
Yes, well, yeah. Well, it's better, isn't it? Be a wolf.
Absolutely.
I also don't want to fall into this sort of virtue signaling on the other side and say, look how great I am, because I've seen through it all, and I must be a stronger individual than you, because I think that's just as easy a trap to fall into. But I think you can, you can. I mean, I think what you're doing, to blow some smoke here, but I mean, I think everything you're doing at the moment is so, because I've been getting so sick on Twitter of watching, and I'm as bad as everyone else, just moaning about it and sharing anecdotes and saying this, what is this still happening, and all this sort of stuff that we all do when we're frustrated. And you are actually getting on and doing stuff with your colleagues.
I have to say, like I said, we've got a little crew now, and we are like a family now. We have fun as well. It's not just it's not just protesting and sort of getting out there and leafleting and doing that. We have fun as well. I mean, we've got, thankfully, we hold our common law workshop every Thursday night in a local pub with a very awake landlord. And bless him, he's quite outspoken in his views, and it's lost him custom, bless him. But now we've got, now we're taking sort of a week's worth of business there to him on a Thursday night, and he loves it, bless him.
Yeah.
We're very lucky, but he will do something once a month where we'll all get together socially. We'll have bands, and we'll have live music, and we'll have a dance, and he puts the barbecue on. We've had Jam for Freedom there. I don't know whether you're familiar with them. But they've sort of toured around the country. They're a band who've sort of, during lockdown carried on doing what they're doing. They're amazing. Right. So we've had Jam for Freedom there, and we have fun with it as well. But we have become a family, and I probably spend more time with. We call ourselves the tribe of Leicestershire now. So we do a lot of things socially, and it's just amazing. I mean, like I say, one good thing out of all of this is just meeting some fantastic people. We support each other. I mean, we've got a guy who's is a retired police officer, and he's the guy that's actually organising all of these events, and he's just wonderful. And we support him, and it is good. We're getting out there in the community, and we're trying to give people the other side of the news, if you like, the bit that they don't see. Not everybody's aware of the yellow card data and how many deaths and reactions are. We're just putting that out there and just educating people. We are trying to sort of support local business, say, look, we want to help keep you open in the event that there is a lockdown. We want you to stay open, and we want to support you. And like I say, we've had it managed the other week, which was amazing. We actually managed to get into the local, the Leicester Mercury, within about an hour of getting out on the pavement. We were in the news.
Wow! And how did they treat you?
Like, do you know what? You've done us a favour. I mean, they called it a bizarre anti-vaccine protest or something. It's just a strange headline, but we were like, do you know what? You've actually quoted from the boards. You've put our message out there for anybody that wasn't driving down that road that day. If they didn't see it, well, they have now. Thank you very much, Leicester Mercury.
That's good. That's very good.
But we are making an impact, and we are being seen. And like a gentleman came over to us, and he was an older chap, and he was an educated guy, and I don't know what his background was, but he said, "Who can I make a donation to?" And we're like, well, it's not, all we're doing is we're just a group of like-minded individuals who've got together. And he actually gave us £20 because we're all putting money into a pot, and we're producing leaflets, we're getting banners printed, all sorts. We're producing the signs. We're all putting our own money into this. And this guy was like, I really want to support you. And he gave us 20 quid, and we're like, oh, that's amazing. And we'll put it towards some leaflets or something. But, we are garnering support now from, the wider community. And we're getting people on the streets that are going, how can I get involved in what you're doing? And we're adding them to the Telegram group. And, that a lot of them have started coming along to the common law meeting on a Thursday now, which is just amazing. So I think whatever we're doing is working. We are, I think there's a lot of people that we're reaching out to that feel the same way that we do, but they're not on Twitter, they're not on Facebook, they're not on any social media, and they don't know where to go, and they feel alone. Yeah. And we actually had a guy that came up to us last week, and he said, I stood in the garden last night having a fag, and he said, and I was nearly in tears. He said, I felt like I was going crazy, and I was the only person. I went, look, there's hundreds of us here today, and you're not on your own, and you reach out, join, get involved, and it is actually going out and getting out there in the community. You are sort of connecting with those people that do feel lost and alone, and it's a lovely feeling. It really is.
Well, I think you're doing a fantastic thing. I mean, I
Yeah,
think that in real life stuff, IRL, as they say, I think is the way forward, because if, as in, not, I mean, the Melbourne thing that's been happening, which has just been nuts.
shocking.
And I mean, how anybody could watch, well, if you, I suppose if you'd watch the TV, you wouldn't see much of it. But if you see the stuff on social media, there is no excuse for what they're doing in Melbourne. But if you see that, and apparently yesterday, I watched a thing called the Guff Stream today at lunchtime, and they were talking about it, and there was some people in the chat from Melbourne, and they were saying that they turned off all the 3G towers or 4G towers in the centre, which they do for terrorist attacks, so you can't communicate. They turned off all the towers in the centre of Melbourne so that they couldn't communicate and they couldn't stream live. And so they basically closed down the centre of Melbourne. And no, there was no press anywhere to be seen apart from Rebel Media, who were in the crowd, and I think arrested. And you just think, well, it would be so easy. We're reliant on communication now so much with things like Twitter and DMs and WhatsApp and Telegram. And it would be so easy to close that all down, and then everyone is on their own. But if you've got in real life, if you've got Stand in the Park, if you've got all of the projects and things that you're involved, which I'll put the links in the bottom of this, wherever this goes, I'll put the links in the bottom, in the description. Then I think that, you've got the old school way of keeping in touch with people, haven't you? Which is fantastic.
Absolutely. I mean, we've already said that. I mean, we meet our Stand in the Park. I mean, everybody that attends a Stand in the Park knows that it's 10 a.m. every Sunday morning. Now, if it all goes south and we're all, cut off from society, then what I'd say to people is, why wait till Sunday morning and meet at 10 o'clock in Stand in the Park, meet at 10 o'clock the next morning at Stand in the Park, go to your place and meet and stay connected. And that's what we're sort of trying to do. And we're all, we've got clusters of people around the city now where, we've got a guy that lives locally to us who he can cycle to us in 10 minutes. We've got people that are connected in different areas around the city, and we're saying, well, look, we know where each other are now, and this is the plan if it all goes horribly wrong. But I think there's more and more, the nice thing is there's more and more of these Stand in the Parks popping up all over the country, which is just amazing. It's really important, I think, if that people do pop along to those things and do what we're doing. And that's how this started. I mean, like I say, 6 months ago we didn't know each other. We connected at Stand in the Park. We've gone out to the wider community. We've gone out into Leicestershire. We're meeting all the people at all the stands. We're connecting with each other, and we've now got this thing going on where we're out on the streets. I mean, there's a group of them that meet every Friday. They'll go to there's an out-of-town retail park close to the M1, and they all meet there about 4 o'clock, and they're there every Friday with banners, just standing there, on the roundabout close to the M1, dropping truth bombs. They get a lot of support. We do this thing now every Saturday afternoon. We do the Pavement Protests, which are really, really well received. People need to get out in the community. I mean, it's okay, great, having a tourist walk around London once a month when with thousands of other people, but what's it actually achieving?
Well, exactly.
I don't think it's achieving a lot at all.
Well, they're not. The only reporting they do on it, when they're forced to, is negative. And
absolutely, yeah.
And they rarely. I mean, I was blocked by Mariana, whatever her name is, the BBC.
Mariana Spring. Yes, yeah. I'm in your club.
Well, I got blocked on the very first London protest. I couldn't make it. I wanted to go and I couldn't make it. And so I was watching it live on Twitter, and she was constantly pinging in with stuff. So I was people were posting live video. I think actually you might have done some. And I was reposting it on her timeline. And of course, she kept saying, "Oh, there's about 300 people or something ridiculous in this." And I'd posted a video that showed probably 20,000 people walking down Oxford Street. And of course, it just made me look like a complete idiot. Anyway, she very quickly blocked me, but no loss there, really.
I've had the same.
Yeah, well, it's a mark of honour, isn't it? It's
very telling, isn't it, when the BBC actually employ a misinformation specialist.
Yeah, perfect job title. Yeah. Stunning, really.
There was never such a thing as fact checkers until people started telling the truth, was there really?
Exactly. It's got it. Well, it could be depressing, but it's great to speak to people like you and hear that you're doing stuff, which is fantastic. And those people that are listening to this and listen to this. It's only a relatively small audience at the moment, but there are it is growing. So anybody that listens, I will put the if you could let me know some of those. I mean, I can find most of them, I'm sure, online, but if there's anything specific you've got, I'll put them in the description so that people can check them out. And if you're in Leicester, you know where to go. And there are places that there are, as you say, there are organizations and groups of people all over the country doing this now, which I think is fantastic. There's also the Third Wednesday Drinks Group, which is something that Dick Dellingpole, James Dellingpole's brother, has sort of set up, and it was a sort of originally a libertarian drinks thing, which has been going for a few years, or a couple of years. It's not particularly political, I don't think now, but it's very similar to, you know, the sort of thing you're doing. It's like-minded people that are pretty pissed off with things, meeting up and just having a few beers, really. And again, it's in real life, which I think is important. So especially through this winter. But well, fantastic. We've been going, including my cock up with the recording, we've been going nearly 1.5 hours. So about 1 hour 15 we've done, which is actually quite a nice time that people can listen to without getting
without going to
worn
sleep,
down. Exactly. Well, nothing, not you, but I tend to do. I'm trying to shorten what I've done so far. Our longest one was with somebody, which was about 5.5 hours. We went on into the night. We were both drinking alcohol, so it kind of lubricated everything. But I had to edit.
Well, you're very lucky that I'm sober today, Sam, because it could have gone on for a lot longer, trust me.
Well, yeah, maybe another time. Maybe we'll have another chat when things have moved on a bit and we know what we're doing. But was there anything else that you wanted to raise or to mention while you have the microphone?
No, I think we've covered pretty much everything, really, haven't we? I mean, like I said, I'll drop you some links, but I think it's definitely people need to sort of learn to sort of take back their power now and realise that, you know, strength in numbers, you know, definitely look into the common law stuff. It's a bit of a minefield, but it is a lot more powerful than you think. But yeah, that's about it, really. And obviously, Stand in the Park, amazing for connecting with people locally and doing what we're doing and building communities. So yeah, I'll drop you the links over to all these things anyway, so you can pop them in. That would be smashing.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Claire. And one last thing on Twitter. What's your handle on Twitter for people that might be on Twitter and want to follow you?
I'm Misanthropist, and it's at Miss_Anthrop75.
Perfect. Righty-ho. You've got quite a significant following, I think, haven't you, as well? I think I saw.
Yeah, I think about just under just under 9,000 now, I think.
That's not bad, is it? That's not bad. No. That's quite a reach. But
not bad for a girl from Leicester with a big gob.
Well, an articulate one as well. So no, I fantastic. I really am. I'm probably starting to sound patronising, but I'm really impressed with the amount of stuff you're doing, which is why I wanted to have you on, really, because I knew that you were being active and doing stuff.
Very active.
Thanks for your time, and we'll hopefully speak again soon.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Take care. Have a nice evening. I didn't even swear. That's amazing.